Hi, I'm Ursula Wake.
And I'm Jon and this is Lyrical Wax.
And today we're going to be looking at some protest songs and poems. So the theme is the dispossessed. I'm going to start off, so they're all chronological. That's how we've organised them.
That's how she's organised them.
Yeah, that's how I organise them. I don't often do chronology, but I've kind of, yes, I've seen the error of my previous ways and have agreed with Jon that actually doing things chronologically is quite a good idea quite often. So I'm going to start off with a poem from Bertolt Brecht, who's known as Bert Brecht, for those of us who know and love him well.
And then for Mac the Knife and the Alabama Song, which I think David Bowie and the Doors and Nina Simone all recorded.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the Alabama Song, I think, is from his play Baal. And yeah, so I suppose he's best known for the Threepenny Opera and Mac the Knife. Yeah, but anyway, so he's also known for writing that many poems. So it's quite a lot, really.
And being married to Lotte Lenya.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
So we could do an entire episode on the protest poems of Bertolt Brecht and still have plenty of his poems left over. But I've just picked out one. So this is called Questions of a Worker Who Reads. And when I read this, read this out when we were preparing it, Jon said, well, it's obvious what the answer is. But this was written in, let me just check, 1935. And for a long time after that, and still to a certain extent, the question is a valid one. So it's about, when you read history books, how it's always claimed that a leader, one person, conquered somewhere or achieved something or took somewhere over, and that in terms of the dispossessed, it's about all of the perfectly ordinary people who did it for the leader, on behalf of the leader, and have been written out of the history books.
Or in the words of Monty Python in the Holy Grail, how do you know he's the king? Because he's not covered in shit like the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is written on behalf of the people covered in shit. Questions of a Worker Who Reads. Who built the 7 gates of Thebes? In books you will read the names of kings. Was it the kings who dragged the stones into place? And Babylon so often destroyed, who rebuilt it so many times? In which of the houses of gold gleaming Lima did the construction workers live? Where, on that evening when the Chinese wall was finished, did the masons go? The great city of Rome is full of triumphal arches. Who set them up? Over whom did the Caesars triumph? Did Byzantium, so much praised in song, have only palaces for its inhabitants? Even in fabled Atlantis, that night when the ocean engulfed it, the drowning roared out for their slaves. Young Alexander conquered India. Was he alone? Caesar defeated the Gauls. Did he not have so much as a cook with him? Philip of Spain wept when his armada went down. Did no one else weep? Frederick II was victorious in the 7 Years' War. Who else prevailed? On every page a victory. Who cooked the victory banquet? Every 10 years a great man. Who paid the bills? So many reports, so many questions.
So answers on a postcard to Lyrical Wax.
Yes.
And we will announce your name. Announce the winner's name. This is Harlem by Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes is at the centre of what's called the Harlem Renaissance, where finally, after the Second World War, we have this astonishing black community asserting itself, and a community that had asserted itself pretty well through music, through Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, and so many other brilliant people. But now there was a literature that was coming forward. And Langston Hughes is essential to that, I think.
And this was written in 1951.
Yeah. So before even I was born, which is a very long time.
Really?
Yeah. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? There was a time before I was born, but it is true. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? Send your answers on a postcard to that one as well.
Yes, absolutely. Another question that we kind of by now know the answer to.
I think we probably do. And what a time they were writing at in the beginning of the civil rights movement. This is a poem that I read as a schoolboy, and it really impressed me. So it stayed with me all this time, and I was looking at Wole Soyinka's work to put together an episode. The first sub-Saharan poet to win the Nobel Prize. I don't know how many sub-Saharan poets have won it since. I think very deservedly. And this poem is called Telephone Conversation. The price seemed reasonable. Location indifferent. The landlady swore she lived off premises. Nothing remained but self-confession. Madam, I warned, I hate a wasted journey. I am African. Silence. Silenced transmission of pressurized good breeding. Voice when it came, lipstick coated, long, gold-rolled cigarette holder pipped. Caught I was, foully. How dark? I had not misheard. Are you light or very dark? Button B, button A. Stench of rancid breath of public hide-and-speak, red booth, red pillar box, red double-tiered omnibus squelching tar. It was real. Shamed by ill-mannered silence, surrender, pushed, dumbfoundment to beg simplification. Considerate she was, varying the emphasis. Are you dark or very light? Revelation came. You mean like plain or milk chocolate? Her accent was clinical, crushing in its light impersonality. Rapidly, wavelength adjusted, I chose West African sepia, and as afterthought, down in my passport, silent. Silence for spectroscopic flight of fancy, till truthfulness changed her accent hard on the mouthpiece. What's that? Conceding. Don't know what that is. Like brunette. That's dark, isn't it? Not altogether. Facially, I am brunette. But, madam, you should see the rest of me. Palm of my hand, soles of my feet, are a peroxide blonde. Friction. Caused, foolishly, madam, by sitting down, has turned my bottom raven black. One moment, madam, sensing her receiver rearing on the thunderclap about my ears. Madam, I pleaded, wouldn't you rather see for yourself? And we would all like to see his bottom raven black, I'm sure. And the button B, button A, that's something from the 1960s. He's in a public phone box and you have to press these buttons to connect the call and keep it working. So I'm old enough to remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that because I was wondering about that.
Well,
I was
you're a
thinking,
youngster.
surely it was the...
Press button A, press button B.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Man, you are old.
I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled.
This next one, so this was written, all I know is that it was written somewhere between 1961 and somewhere between 1971. And seeing as I've started to sort out things chronologically, it feels important to mention that. So this one is by a Norwegian poet I'd not heard of before I read this poem. Olaf Hauger. If you're Norwegian and I've pronounced it wrong, hope you'll forgive me. But yeah, Hauger, not sure, but I think it's Hauger. And so it was written when he was in a psychiatric unit, at the time known as a mental institution. That feels like a very odd phrase to use. I'm not comfortable with it, but that is how it would have been termed. And
funny farm. There are so many horrible expressions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I suppose at the time, because the image that I have of a mental institution, that phrase, is of something really harsh and quite brutal, and maybe that's perfectly valid, actually. So yeah, maybe psychiatric ward is a little too soft, as it were. I don't know. So this is this was written while he was in one of those places. It's called "I Stand Here, Do You Understand?" In terms of the dispossessed, I think people with mental health problems are still very much some of the dispossessed.
Definitely.
So this feels very valid. I stand here, do you understand? I stood here last year too. Do you understand? I am going to stand here too. Do you understand? I take it too. Do you understand? There's something you don't know. Do you understand? You just got here. Do you understand? How long are we to stand here? We have to eat too. Do you understand? I stand when I eat too. I do that, do you understand? And throw the plates at the wall. We have to rest too, do you understand? We have to piss and shit too, do you understand? How long are we to stand here? I stand all right, do you understand? I take it too, do you understand? I'm going to stand here, do you understand? Nice one, Olaf.
Yeah, powerful. Certainly is. You know,
Absolutely.
It's sort of saying, do you realise I'm a human being too?
Absolutely, yeah.
One flew east and one flew west and one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Okay, we come to our second Nobel Prize winner of the evening, Mr. Robert Zimmerman.
Yes.
More commonly known as Bob Dylan.
We couldn't have an episode on protest without Bob. We've come to Bob Dylan. It's that moment.
We have missed out
Woody
Guthrie.
We're missing out loads.
Who was
of people.
his hero, and Pete Seeger. But
yeah.
We'll get back to you. Don't worry if you're out there, Woody and Pete, in the afterlife somewhere. We'll tell you exactly how many roads a man has to walk down. It's 42. This is an abbreviated form. I only know this from the soundtrack to Easy Rider, where I think it's performed by Roger McGuinn of the Byrds. And I didn't realise what a great long thing the original was. So we've abbreviated it a little. We've kept all of the Easy Rider version and added a couple of bits. But I was powerfully moved by this at the age of 15 or whatever it was when I first heard it, and had no idea what it meant. I think I have a bit of an idea now. It's called "It's All Right, Ma, I'm Only Bleeding." It sounds like a slight contradiction in terms. Darkness at the break of noon, shadows, even the silver spoon, the handmade blade, the child's balloon, eclipses both the sun and moon. To understand, you know too soon, there is no sense in trying. Pointed threats, they bluff with scorn, suicide remarks are torn from the fool's gold mouthpiece. The hollow horn plays wasted words, proves to warn that he, not busy being born, is busy dying. Temptation's page flies out the door, you follow, find yourself at war, watch waterfalls of pity roar, you feel the moan, but unlike before, you discover that you'd just be one more person crying. So don't fear if you hear a foreign sound to your ear. It's all right, Ma, I'm only sighing. Disillusioned words, like bullets bark as human gods aim for their mark, make everything from toy guns that spark to flesh-coloured Christs that glow in the dark. It's easy to see without looking too far that not much is really sacred. A question in your nerves is lit, yet you know there is no answer fit to satisfy and sure you not to quit, to keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to. But though the masters make the rules for the wise men and the fools, I got nothing, Ma, to live up to. For them that must obey authority, that they do not respect in any degree, who despise their jobs, their destiny, speak jealously of them that are free, do what they do just to be, nothing more than something they invest in. While them that defend what they cannot see with a killer's pride, security, it blows the minds most bitterly. For them that think death's honesty won't fall upon them naturally, life sometimes must get lonely. And if my thought dreams could be seen, they'd probably put my head in a guillotine. But it's all right, Ma. It's life, and life only. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, cheers, Bob. Send the cheque too. So, and we go from there to, again, a song that I heard as a teenager. I remember actually going into the record store on, was it on Tamworth Street or Green Hill? I don't remember. And I worked in a record store too, but this was not the one I worked in. And the young woman behind the counter when I said, "What album does this song come from?" She said, "You wouldn't like it, Tamla Motown." Because I've got long hair and obviously listen to Led Zeppelin,
yeah.
you know. So she said, "Just buy the single, you wouldn't like the album." So that's the Smokey Robinson album that I never did buy, which is a bit sad. But I love this song, and it's got a kind of really cliched string part in it that's kind of Native American imitation, what have you. But I loved it, so that's all there is to it. What is being said here, however, I think is extraordinarily relevant for the dispossessed.
Yes.
In this case, the black African Americans. And the song is Just My Soul Responding. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. A few years ago, on my birthday, I had just become 21. I remember. I had a lot to live. Said I had a lot to give. Till a man comes to hand me a gun. And though that war he sent me to didn't claim me, if I'm bitter, don't blame me. It's just my soul responding. Don't you try to tell me I'm unpatriotic. I deserve an explanation. I can't help but wonder if you really got it. It's just my soul responding. Soul responding. Soul responding. This land once belonged to my father, and his father before him too. Let me tell you now, I'm on a reservation, living in a state of degradation. What's a soul supposed to do? Because I'm out, pushing, right? I'm not in doubt. When it's just my soul responding, oh, to seeing little hungry children in the land of plenty, just my soul responding, oh, to doing lots of needing and never having any. It's just my soul responding, soul responding, soul responding. I was born and raised in the ghetto, on the rundown side of the track, and there are forces who do everything they can do to hold me back because my skin is black. Oh, don't they know I want mine? Hell, it's about time. It's just my soul responding. Oh, to being second class in a land I helped to form. Just my soul responding to too many roaches and not enough heat to keep my babies warm. In this land I help to form. I've got too many roaches and not enough heat to keep my babies warm. It's just my soul responding. It's just my soul. It's just my soul. It's just my soul responding. It's just my soul responding.
Powerful stuff. And onto some more powerful stuff. This is Maya Angelou, and a very famous poem from 1978, and it's called Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with a certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide. Welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Powerful stuff again. Fantastic.
I was reading a listing that said that she is the most popular poet in America of her time, which is a thought, and a wonderful thought. That, this recognition of... It's so hard to think that there are still people who believe that black people are genetically a separate race from white people. That, you know, and that we have, you know, these identity Christians, as they call themselves in the US, who talk about mud people, and who have this bizarre Nazi ideology. And the reality is, like it or not, that science demonstrates that...
Like it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all black. Some of us are just paler than the rest, and that's all there is to it. We're all related. We're all one human family.
It's utterly bizarre that it's still... Yeah. It's beyond belief, actually, that it's still not accepted by some people. Luckily fewer and fewer.
Well, even the word genocide, which is a 1940s word, has in it the idea that there are different genuses of human being, and it's like it's species, subspecieside would be the proper term, I think. But there we go.
Yeah. So this is me again. This is moving on to 1978, and this is a song that I remember from my school days, and this was, we used to sing it in the common room. This was, I'm sure I've mentioned school common rooms in another, I can't remember why, in another episode.
You're obsessed with
because I'm obsessed with school common rooms. But I notice it when I say it, because nowadays you just don't, in my day job I have to go into loads of different schools. So common rooms haven't existed for ages, certainly since, you know, all the time that my kids have been alive, which is quite a while now. And so it just feels like the thing from another age, where you had a room where you could hang out at lunchtime and we could bring in our vinyl records to play. And one of them was this by the Tom Robinson Band, It's called Sing If You're Glad to Be Gay. And I saw him play live at the Cambridge Folk Festival in 1988, so 10 years after this had come out. And he played it, and there was a big audience. And halfway through, he stopped and he said, "It's 10 years since this song came out, and you still can't sing the chorus, can you?" Yeah, it's interesting. And
literacy had not risen at all during that time.
But loads of people just could not bring themselves to sing the chorus that
Yeah.
you'll come across if you don't know it.
Bizarre.
Sing If You're Glad to Be Gay. And there's a spoken intro to this song, which is, "This song is dedicated to the World Health Organization. It's a medical song, and it concerns a disease whose classification, according to the International Classification of Diseases, is 302.0. The British police are the best in the world. I don't believe one of those stories I've heard about them raiding our pubs for no reason at all, lining the customers up by the wall, picking out people and knocking them down, resisting arrest as they're kicked on the ground, searching their houses and calling them queer. I don't believe that sort of thing happens here. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way." Pictures of naked young women are fun. In Titbits and Playboy, page 3 of The Sun. There's no nudes in Gay News, our one magazine, but they still find excuses to call it obscene. Read how disgusting we are in the press. The Telegraph, People and Sunday Express. Molesters of children, corrupters of youth, it's there in the paper. It must be the truth. Try and sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. Don't try to kid us that if you're discreet, you're perfectly safe as you walk down the street. You don't have to mince or make bitchy remarks to get beaten unconscious and left in the dark. I had a friend who was gentle and short. He was lonely one evening and went for a walk. Queer bashers caught him, kicked in his teeth. He was only hospitalised for a week. And he still bears the scars. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy that way. And sit back and watch as they close down our clubs, arrest us for meeting and raid all our pubs. Make sure your boyfriend's at least 21, so only your friends and your brothers get done. Lie to your workmates, lie to your folks. Put down the queens, tell anti-queer jokes. Gay libs ridiculous, join their laughter. The buggers are legal now, what more are they after? Tell 'em. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy this way. Sing if you're glad to be gay. Sing if you're happy this way.
A friend of mine spent an evening with Tom Robinson, and he said he was one of the most delightful and unaffected people he'd ever met. He was just an ordinary, sweet human being. And the classification of mental disorders, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, I think until 1993, still listed homosexuality as a psychiatric disorder. Truly preposterous.
Indeed. So we now move on to, this is a different kind of Dispossessed. So this is from 1981. This was about life in Britain. So Margaret Thatcher had been Prime Minister for 2 years by this point, and economically things were not good.
Well,
over to you.
Yeah, and economically things had not been good for a while. There'd been a collapse running through the Callaghan government before, through the Heath government before that. Things had really... and we were coming to a division in our society that hadn't really happened since the battles with the black shirts in the 1930s in London, where there was the haves and the haves not, the north-south divide, all of this. Do you want to tell our American or non-British listeners why the band was called UB40?
Oh, I will do, yes. So this is a song by a band called UB40. The UB40 at the time was a form that you had to fill in and you had to carry around and take if you were getting for American, is it welfare money?
Unemployment benefit, UB.
Yeah, unemployment benefit, Form 40. So it was... So it's if you've got one of these, it means you're unemployed and you're on welfare.
The song is called 1 in 10. I'm a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I'm a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there, a statistic, a reminder of a world that doesn't care. My arms enfold the dole queue, malnutrition dulls my hair, my eyes are black and lifeless, with an underprivileged stare. I'm the beggar on the corner, will no one spare a dime? I'm the child that never learns to read, because no one spared the time. I'm a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I'm a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there, a statistic, a reminder of a world that doesn't care. I'm the murderer and the victim, the licence with the gun. I'm a sad and bruised old lady in an alley, in a slum. I'm a middle-aged businessman with a chronic heart disease. I'm another teenage suicide in a street that has no trees. I'm a 1 in 10, a number on a list. I'm a 1 in 10, even though I don't exist. Nobody knows me, but I'm always there, a statistic, a reminder of a world that doesn't care. And they were really interesting, UB40, because they didn't know how to play. There were a bunch of school kids who got together and decided they wanted to be a band. And Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders heard them and said, right, you can play support on my tour. And they had to quickly put these songs together, and they were all absolutely fanatical about reggae. And so they kind of, they've said that it's the Campbell family, isn't it?
Yeah,
There are 3 of them involved. They've said that it was only by the 3rd album that they'd really learned how to start playing. But along the way, and then they played reggae classics like Red, Red Wine, which they're famous for. And I personally do prefer the original. And the record label said, oh, no, you can't do that. You know, it was like when Johnny Cash was told that he couldn't sing gospel songs. Or Ray Charles was told that he couldn't sing country and western. And of course, his 2 country and western albums are the biggest selling Ray Charles albums. They're brilliant. But they moved from one place to another, and it's perhaps a little sad because those original songs, the lyrics are so powerful, so direct, and that's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that first album, a lot of it is really good, very political. The final one, final poem we've got today is Dispossessed of Another Kind, The Deaf. But it's actually part of, it's by Ilya Kaminsky, and it's part of a book called Deaf Republic, 2019. And it takes the form of a play. And in fact, this is ending, and we started with Bertolt Brecht. And the interesting thing is that there's something very Brechtian about this play. So I dare say that Ilya Kaminsky has quite a soft spot for Bertolt Brecht. And so in this, so the play is about, it opens in a time of political unrest, it says, in an occupied territory. It's uncertain where we are or when, in what country or during what conflict, but we come to recognise that these events are also happening here right now. And what happens at the beginning is that a deaf boy is shot by some soldiers. And the gunshot is the last thing that the people present hear. The idea is, I think partly it's so loud that it deafens them, but there's also, as we will see in this, a decision of how they're going to respond to this. So the boy who's shot dead at the puppet show, he's shot dead at a puppet show, which is relevant. His name is Petya. Deafness and insurgency begins. Our country woke up next morning and refused to hear soldiers. In the name of Petya, we refuse. At 6 a.m, when soldiers compliment girls in the alleyway, the girls slide by pointing to their ears. At 8, the bakery door is shut in Soldier Ivanov's face, though he's their best customer. At 10, Mama Galia chalks "No one hears you" on the gates of the soldiers' barracks. By 11 a.m, arrests begin. Our hearing doesn't weaken, but something silent in us strengthens. After curfew, families of the arrested hang homemade puppets out of their windows. The street's empty, but for the squeaks of strings and the tap, tap against the buildings of wooden fists and feet. In the ears of the town, snow falls.
So there we are, and let's dedicate this episode to the dispossessed.
Indeed.
To those who are protesting against despotism and tyranny around the world at the moment, which is happening in many places. And let's hope that those conflicts come to a resolution with a minimum of violence. So,
yeah, and the fight's ongoing, and it always will be.
Yeah, but
it's worth, yes.
It's the fight is, yeah, it's worth the fight. It definitely is. And let's hope that fight can be carried to people's hearts, that they will understand, so that it doesn't have to be fought with bullets and bludgeoning. But there we are.
And that's the purpose of protest songs and poems, isn't it? It's that determination, that optimism, that actually you can reach people's hearts and minds. It seems to me that it goes in waves. That's not a wave. It doesn't really go in circles necessarily. I don't know. It goes in waves, so ups and downs. So there are times when it feels as though these kinds of pieces, these songs and these poems of this kind are taken seriously, and they are given a wide airing. We're releasing this not that long after the inauguration of Joe Biden, where Amanda Gorman, young poet laureate of USA, performed a very strong poem at the inauguration, and she's getting what, for want of a better phrase, a good airing at the moment worldwide on social media. So there are times when these things are sort of taken more seriously, I suppose, and then times when people almost seem to give up or hunker down and resign themselves. And then it takes a new wave of people to write these things, to remind people of the need for this fight.
And it can be very significant at the point where the Army of Independence in the United States was fighting and they were ready to go home and give up. A poem by Thomas Paine was written onto the drumheads of the drummers to be read out about summer soldiers, and it's very possible that was a turning point, that without Paine, and I'm not keen on violence in any context, but nonetheless without Paine's words, it could well be that New England would still be a colony, that it inspired people, and we have to remember that we have to have courage, and courage is a word that means to be heartened, to have a passion, to have a fervour to do something in the world, and that is most often given to us by writers and poets.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm Jon Atack.
I'm Ursula Wake. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.